Hey everybody, so as promised, for those of you who skipped the last chapter, I'm going to do a quick summary. If you watched the last video, you can skip ahead this part. It probably won't take longer than like a minute, max. So in the last chapter, Edmond had taken some of the treasure from its hiding place, covered the rest of it up, waited for the ship he had been on to come back and get him. When they did, he went ashore, exchanged the bit of treasure that he had for normal currency, and bought a yacht, which he modified with a secret compartment, and then went back to Monte Cristo after sending off one of his friends slash crewmates to go to Marseille to see if they could find out any information on his father and Mercedes. When he gets back to Monte Cristo, he goes back to the grotto, grabs a whole bunch more treasure, hides it in his little secret compartment. His friend comes and meets him at Monte Cristo, tells him that his father's passed away and nobody knows what happened to Mercedes. She's just gone. So Edmond thanks him and gets back in his yacht and travels back to Marseille to see if he can figure out what happened to Mercedes. When he gets to Marseille, he uses an English passport, which is obviously a forged passport, but he uses an English passport to kind of skirt around customs and steps back into Marseille, and that's where we will pick up with chapter 21, the Pont du Gard Inn. Such of my readers as have, like me, made a walking tour through the south of France may perchance have noticed midway between the town of Beaucaire and the village of Bellegarde a small roadside inn, in front of which hung, creaking and flapping in the wind, an iron shield bearing a grotesque representation of the Pont du Gard. The little inn had been occupied for the last 7 or 8 years by no other than Dante's old acquaintance, Gaspard Cadros. He was standing, as was his wont, at his place of observation before the door, his eyes wandering listlessly from a small patch of grass where some hens were scratching for food to the deserted road leading from north to south, when suddenly he described the dim outline of a man on horseback approaching from Bellegarde at that easy amble which betokens the best of understanding between horse and rider. The rider was a priest, robed in black and wearing a 3-cornered hat in spite of the scorching sun which was at its zenith. Arrived at the door of the inn, he halted. It would have been difficult to say whether it was the horse that stopped the man or the man that stopped the horse. In any case, the man dismounted and, dragging the animal after him by the bridle, tied it to a dilapidated shutter. Cadros advanced, all bows and smiles. "Are you not Monsieur Cadros?" asked the priest in a strong Italian accent. "Yes, monsieur," replied the innkeeper. "That is my name, Gaspard Cadros, at your service. Can I not offer you some refreshment, Monsieur l'Abbé?" "Certainly. Give me a bottle of your best wine, and afterward, with your permission, we will resume our conversation." When mine host reappeared after a few minutes' absence, he found the abbé sitting on his stool with his elbows on the table. He placed a bottle of wine and a glass before him. "Are we alone?" asked the abbé. "Oh, yes, all alone, or nearly so, for my wife doesn't count, as she is always ailing. First of all, I must convince myself that you are really he whom I seek. In the year 1814 or 15, did you know a sailor named Dantes?" "Dantes? I should think I did. Poor Edmond! Why, he was one of my best friends," exclaimed Cadros. "What has become of poor Edmond, monsieur? Do you know him? Is he still living? Is he free? Is he happy?" "He died a prisoner, more wretched and more miserable than any prisoner lying in chains in the prison at Toulon." The deep red of Cadros' face gave way to ghastly paleness. He turned aside, and the abbé saw him wipe away a tear with a corner of the handkerchief tied round his head. "Poor fellow," Cadros murmured. "You seem to have been very fond of this boy." "I was indeed," answered Cadros, "though I have it on my conscience that at one time I envied him his happiness. But I swear to you, Monsieur l'Abbé, I swear it on my honor that since then I have deeply deplored his lot." There was a moment's silence, during which the abbe's fixed gaze did not cease to examine the agitated features of the innkeeper. "Did you know the poor lad?" continued Cadros. "I was called to his bedside to administer to him the last consolation of his religion. What is so very strange about it all," the abbe continued, "is that on his deathbed Dantes swore by the crucifix that he was entirely ignorant of the cause of his imprisonment. He besought me, therefore, to clear up the mystery of his misfortune, which he had never been able to explain himself, and, if his memory had been sullied, to remove the tarnish from his name." The abbe's eyes were fixed on Cadros's countenance and seemed to penetrate to his very soul. "A rich Englishman," continued the abbe, his companion in misfortune for a time, but released at the second restoration, owned a diamond of very great value. On leaving the prison, he wished to give his companion a token of his gratitude for the kind and brotherly way he had nursed him through an illness, and gave him the diamond. When on his deathbed Dantes said to me, "I had 3 good friends and a sweetheart, and I am sure they have deeply regretted my misfortune. One of these good friends was named Cadros." Cadros could not repress a shudder. "Another one," the abbe went on without appearing to notice Cadros's emotion, "was named Danglars. The third one," he said, "also loved me, though he was my rival, and his name was Fernand. The name of my betrothed was—" "I do not remember the name of his betrothed." "Mercedes," said Cadros. "Yes, that was it," replied the abbe with a repressed sigh. "Mercedes it was. Go to Marseille," Dantes said, "and sell this diamond. The money obtained for it divide into 5 parts and give an equal share to each of these good friends, the only beings on earth who have loved me." "Why into 5 parts?" exclaimed Cadros. "You only named 4 persons." "Because I hear the 5th person is dead. The 5th share was for Dantes' father." "Alas, it is only too true," said Cadros, deeply moved by the contending passions that were aroused in him. "The old man died less than a year after his son disappeared." "What did he die of?" "I believe the doctors called his disease gastric enteritis, but those who knew him say that he died of grief, and I, who practically saw him die, say that he died of—" Cadros hesitated. "Died of what?" the priest asked anxiously. "Why, of hunger." "Of hunger!" the abbe cried, jumping up. "Do you say of hunger? Why, the vilest animals are not allowed to starve. The dogs wandering about the streets find a compassionate hand to throw them a piece of bread, and a man, a Christian, has died of hunger amidst men who also call themselves Christian? Is it possible? No, it cannot be." "It is, as I have said," replied Cadros. "But," continued the priest, "was the unhappy old man so completely forsaken by everyone that he died such a death?" "It is not because Mercedes or Monsieur Morel had forsaken him," replied Cadros. "The poor old man took a strong dislike to the same Fernand who Dantes named as one of his friends," he added with an ironical smile. "Was he not a friend, then?" asked the abbe. "Can a man be a friend to him whose wife he covets? Dantes was so large-hearted that he called them all his friends. Poor Edmond! Do you know in what way Fernand wronged Dantes? No one better than I." "Will you not tell me? What good would it do?" "Then you would prefer me to give these men who, you say, are false and faithless friends a reward intended for faithful friendship?" "You are right," said Cadros. "Besides, what would poor Edmond's legacy be to them now? No more than a drop of water in the mighty ocean." "How so? Have they become rich and mighty?" "Then you do not know their history." "No." "Tell it to me." Cadros appeared to reflect for an instant. "No," he said, "it would take too long." "You may please yourself, my friend," said the abbe with an air of complete indifference. "I respect your scruples and admire your sentiment. We will let the matter drop. I will sell the diamond." So saying, he took the diamond out of his pocket and let the light play on it right in front of Cadros. "Oh, what a magnificent diamond!" exclaimed the latter in a voice almost hoarse with emotion. "It must be worth at least 50,000 francs. "Remember, it is your wish that I divide the money amongst all 4 of you," the abbe said calmly, replacing the diamond in the pocket of his cassock. "Now, be kind enough to give me the address of Edmond's friend so that I may carry out his last wishes." The perspiration stood out in big drops on Cadros's forehead. He saw the abbe rise and go toward the door as if he wished to ascertain that his horse was all right. Afterward, he returned and asked, "Well, what have you decided to do?" "To tell you everything," was the innkeeper's reply. "I really believe that this is the best thing you can do," replied the priest. "Not because I am anxious to know what you wish to conceal from me, but simply because it will be much better if you can help me to distribute the legacy as the testator would have desired. Begin." I am all attention. Kadros went to the door and closed it, and, by the way of greater precaution, shut the bolt. The priest chose a seat in a corner where he could listen at his ease and where he would have his back to the light while the narrator would have the light full on his face. There he sat, his head bent, his hands joined, or rather clenched, ready to listen with all attention. Kadros took a stool and sat in front of him and began his story. And we will pick up next time with chapter 22. Have a great day, guys.